interesting part of this, and I've not been a modeler for very long, 5 years, was seeing how the equipment always looked used at the places I went that had really great layouts. So somebody mentioned that they'd discovered how to do this paint booth.
Yeah, no paint booth.
No paint booth.
Not all by hand.
I don't want to paint for a paint booth, so I'm interested in listening to this, and I also conned him into doing a presentation because I felt some of you would be interested too. So, there you are, sir. This is Jesse Jr. I mean, Nick, and
We're not sure.
Hello folks, my name is Nicholas Smith, and I'd first like to thank each and every one of you for coming to SACOM's 27th Annual Chief Logan Modelers Weekend. Today, I'll be giving a presentation on the art of weathering by hand. Now, there's far too much to cram it all into a 45-minute speech. So, I'm going to focus on an important part that can make or break any weathering job, and that is a proper rust technique. During this time, I'll show you how to create rust and blend it into the rest of the weathering job, while adding other subtle details that some people may not know yet. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Step 1, identify your project. Identify the model you're weathering. Each model will have its own unique quirks about them, and throughout this process, those defining features will play a role in giving each piece its own unique character. For example, vents, whistles, greasy areas, and wet spots all have the potential to give the model a special little touch in the end, but we'll get to that soon enough. Step 2, inspiration. Locate the pictures of what you want to weather. The more pictures you have to start with, the better it is to look at things later. While searching for pictures, you can decide how weatherable look you want to achieve for your project. Sometimes you might want a light weathering job, such as on a caboose, but a heavier weathering job on an age-covered hopper. Remember that no matter how weathered you make it, there's probably a real car out there that looks somewhere even worse for wear. Step 3, the hard part, getting started. Begin the base layers of rust. You want to take your time on all of these steps. Take breaks if you have to, and it's okay if a weathering job takes you a few days or even weeks. It's better when you finish a project and are 100% satisfied with what you did. You can't do that if you get tired or tunnel vision from staring at your fingertips for hours and hours. So take breaks whenever you feel like it. It's very important. Now, the rust stage will dictate the end result because all the other steps are based around this one. Make sure you get all the sides, including the bottom, except on locomotives. Never paint or chalk the back sides of the wheels because you'll render the engine completely useless once you paint the power pickup points. It's a very time-consuming process to clean it all back off when you do. Typically, I start from the top and work my way down the sides, letting each section dry fully before moving on. Also, you'll want to wash your fingers or your hands frequently during this whole process to avoid unwanted fingerprints. Or you can wear those blue nitrile gloves, which I don't because I don't like, I can't feel anything with them. So, dirty fingernails it is for me. Now, starting on the roof, you want to use your smallest brush and lightly streak paint from the center ridge line down towards the edges. Never go side to side with your brush strokes. You want to keep your streaks going in the direction that would naturally weather, meaning where soot and water would accumulate over its lifetime. Use as much enamel paint as you want, depending on the look you're trying to achieve. But remember, a little does go a very long way. Make sure your brush isn't completely saturated with paint. You want a dry brush effect to give a more natural fade towards the edges. Once the roof is finished, I move on to the sides of the car. Using the rusty areas on the roof as a guide, I apply enamel paint to the sides and continue the rust on its natural path down. Think of how water would flow off a car. Those areas would be heaviest weathered, followed up by contact areas such as most car door rails, the edges of a beat up gun, as well as steps or damage to a plow. You can get as detailed as you want. Sometimes I find myself painting rivet heads, springs, and other tiny details that almost no one but me will ever notice. But it makes a huge difference in the end of the project. So go crazy and have fun with it. You'll thank yourself later with the results. Once you get your rust painted on the sides, you can take black or brown enamel and thin it way down so it's as runny as water. I typically use roughly a 5-to-1 ratio, 5 parts thinner to 1 part paint. Just eyeball it really, it doesn't matter that much. Mix well together, dip your brush in it, and now wherever you touch the car, a dark hue will fill the cracks. Remember, when working with paint thinner, you don't want to touch it more than once or twice, or it'll start removing the paint under it. I have one touch rule when working with enamel. Don't worry, if you do make a mistake, you can always fix it. If I need to remove a bloop of paint or a smear that I might not have intended, I'll put some thinner on a Q-tip and very gently roll it over the area to remove the top layer of paint. Even if it doesn't look perfect, there's a long way to go, so you can always cover it up later. It's not the end of the world, and it'll add character to your finished product. You can also use the same trick with a Q-tip to fade decals. Be very gentle or you'll remove the decal fast. Once you get the sides done, move to the ends of the car, and at this point, it helps to have a stand of some kind just to suspend the model on. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Something to hold it so you don't have to. Fresh paint will still get fingerprints on it hours and hours after you painted the area, so taking precautions such as this can only make the end result better. And again, you don't have to spend a lot of money on it. I literally made this with scraps laying around and a little glue. And it actually works. You can pick it up, you hold it, you move it around, it's fantastic. Again, start at the top and work towards the bottom, applying the rust anywhere you feel necessary. Remember, grab irons and coupler areas, as they typically tend to show paint wear sooner than the rest of the car. Now, continue on to the bottom. Sometimes cars have a very cheap bottom, and others are highly detailed. If you have the ability to take the bottom completely apart, do it. It'll make your job 100% easier, and it'll look a lot better in the end. Paint the frame a different color than the underside of the floor. Give it contrast. Add some rust along the higher contact areas, such as frame rails and brake rigging that hang down. It's okay to leave the area where the truck's attached to the frame clean, so nothing binds up or makes a sticky connection when it all goes back together. Nobody will see it anyways. I also won't paint the tops of the trucks for this reason too. You can paint the edges, but not the center where it makes contact, because it'll get gummy. The last step for the rust is to take the wheels and trucks off and paint everything. Trucks and wheels get painted mostly rusty brown, then chalked later for texture, but we'll get into that very soon. We have to let this dry for now. Okay. Step 4, oil or acrylic paint. I prefer working with oil, but both will get the job done, and you can create incredible looks with either method. Some of my friends have shown me with acrylics. That's Sean Chandler, a lot of us know him, he's in the club. Before we begin, I have to mention that when working with oil paint, it has an incredibly long cure time. My first model took over a week to fully cure. Whoops. Then I discovered this wonderful little solution called a medium. I mix it thoroughly, about 50-50, maybe even a little bit heavier, with the oil paint before I get started. That reduces the cure time from a week or more to only a couple of days. possibly even hours if it's a really thin layer. Also, depending on humidity and temperature conditions, when I'm working with oil paint, I have a dehumidifier running constantly to help aid in the drying process. And again, starting with the roof and working down, I begin with applying oil paint inside the areas I painted with rusty brown enamel, leaving the enamel exposed on the edges to help blend the textures together later. You can dot the oil paint with a brush across an area and gently streak it once your brush has dried some. The whole point of the oil paint is two things, really. The first being a bright contrasting layer to simulate newer, fresher rust. And the second is to be a binding agent for chalk to stick to and give the rust texture. The next step is probably the most important of this entire process, as it ties everything we've done so far together. Step 5, texture with chalk. Okay, we've made it to the chalk phase, but this will be a very delicate application of chalk, only to the areas with oil paint, not the whole model yet. So, let's get into it. You want to use a clean brush or a dedicated brush for your lightest rusty brown colors that you have. Application will be by getting chalk dust on your brush and tapping the brush with your finger to get it to drop onto the oil paint. After dropping chalk dust across the oil, use a short bristled soft brush to dab the chalk into the oil. Very gently though, you don't want to press it in there, just light touches. Make sure you add the chalk to your brush frequently and try not to dab over the edges of the oil paint. Again, you want to keep it within the enamel. Clean your brush frequently during this process to remove excess oil paint from it. You don't want it to get gummy. Remember, this is just the rust. We're doing the rest of the car very soon. Next, add dark brown chalk. Tap in the same manner, tapping the chalk on but not dabbing the brush like before. Just tap it and allow the colors under it to show through. Make sure not to spread the oil around too much during this whole process. Do not touch it with your fingers at all, whatever you do. It just makes a mess. Now, using a swift puff of air, simply and blow the entire area you just worked on off, removing all the chalk that wasn't touching the oil paint. Take note that when you use dark colors, it's impossible to go back. So always start with your lightest colors first. And when it comes to rust, progressively adding darker and darker areas until you're satisfied with the result. Give it a few hours in front of a fan, or a dehumidifier in this case, to begin to cure. Sitting it in direct sunlight works too, but you have to be really careful. The hot summer sun will warp a plastic model in no time, so just ask me how I know. Flat cars turn into horseshoes. After it loses its wet look and it starts getting crusty, hit the whole car with a dull coat, one panel at a time. Blow on it to help speed up the drying time, as it should only take a few seconds. Also, don't go crazy with dull coat, just enough to cover the car. You don't need much. Cover up any windows with tape before you apply dull coat to keep the glass clear. If you paint them, they get hazy. You can no longer see inside. You also can't use thinner to remove the dull coat from the windows itself, because it'll haze up from the chemical reaction of simply touching it. So do yourself a favor, cover the windows with tape every time. There we go. All right. Step 6, the final chalking. Once the dull coat is dried, you can move on to adding the grime and sand to the car or locomotive that you've been working on. But first, you can revisit the rust you just created and add small spots of gray, black, and believe it or not, bright yellow to the rusty areas. Yellow first, and here's why. The yellow adds a certain look to the already nice rust under the dull coat. Lightly apply it in small areas to give the impression of newer, fresher rust. You can also apply the yellow chalk to the perimeter of the enamel paint, step 1 of this process, to give the illusion of faded paint that hasn't turned to rust yet, that's turning to rust but hasn't quite yet. Once you apply everything you want, blow the excess chalk off, then use a large, flat, bristled brush with semi-soft bristles to brush the excess away. Just leave a fraction of the chalk you actually applied, and that's a good thing. This will give it another level of detail in the end. Think layers. The more layers you have, the more depth you achieve. Applying these layers in the proper order gives you the most realistic results. In my opinion, that is. But I've only been doing this for a couple of years, so everyone here probably knows more than me. Next, use various shades of gray and black for the grime of simply riding the rails for possibly decades. Lightly brush it along the sides of a boxcar to accentuate the ribs, progressively dab the floor to apply a lot of color over a large area. Silver chalk can be used on the front of boilers as aged graphite. It gives a flatter appearance than the factory paint and a somewhat aged look, wouldn't you agree? White chalk can also be used around the steam whistle, dynamo, or on the steam chest to simulate calcification from steam condensing on the surrounding areas for its entire lifetime. Yellow and tan are used for sand or on lighter equipment, such as UP equipment, or the stripes on tricolor C&O equipment. You can use it to fade the paint. You can also apply a sandy colored chalk with oil paint to the nose of an EMD during the previous step to simulate a spill during sanding. Let your imagination run wild. The only limit is what you want to do. That's the great part about all this. Same can be said with various shades of blue for C&O equipment. Using a lighter shade of blue simulates faded paint better than using white chalk. Once you fade the paint in some areas, you can always go back and add the dust and grime to blend it all together with the rest of the piece. But blue will keep the same natural tones that it originally had as it faded. That also works for greens, reds, anything that might have a strange stray color on it. Use pink on red, it fades it out. So, at this point, a couple hours at least have gone by. The model is cured and is ready to handle. Take your finished piece and run your fingers from the bottom to the top of each panel. I know, it sounds weird. Stick with me here. Try to touch the entire model during this process. Your fingers will get filthy, so swap fingers periodically. There's a point to this. What you're doing is removing the last of the chalk the final brushing didn't get rid of. You can always touch it up and add more later if you take too much off or aren't happy. But running your fingers over it simulates two things. So, the first one is, it blends the colors together one last time. The second one, it removes excess chalk that may turn into fingerprints later with a gentle touch. So like your car is on a club layout, somebody picks it up, innocently puts it down, now it has a fingerprint on the side. By doing this, I don't get fingerprints anymore. I don't know, I didn't come up with the idea, I just figured it out. But it's really cool, guys, so try that and wash your hands. Dirty fingers. The dull coat will retain some of the chalk regardless. So there's no need to dull coat it again after this step. In fact, if you do, you may remove much of the chalk that you've just applied and have to redo the last few steps again to get back to the same result. If you're working on a steam locomotive, I suggest you go walk around the tracks, find a couple pieces of coal, smash them up, but use caution. It's going to make one heck of a mess. And once the coal is crushed, you can sift it out. Fine dust separately from slightly more coarse dust. That's a cool shot. Add some Mod Podge to the coal bunker in the tender with a brush. You can include some areas where the coal may have spilled onto the water tank section behind the bunker. Or add some glue to the walkway between the cab and the tender and sprinkle the dust on it. with a catch pan under the engine. Dump the coarse coal chunks onto the Mod Podge areas. Turn the tender upside down and tap it to get the excess off. The remaining areas of glue you see exposed, you can dump the coal dust over it and fill the gaps. The result is a coal load that looks as good as the real thing. You can also take peace in knowing that your C&O steam engine is now burning real C&O coal, just as God intended, right? All right, you're not asleep, that's fantastic. Now, touch up other areas using a gloss clear coat to simulate water or fuel splash. Spitter valve drip or grease on wheel bearings and rods always look wet. Paint the area black first before you clear coat it to simulate grease spots. You can also add chalk for texture before glossing it to give it that thick, clumpy grease effect. Remember to just have fun with it. I can't say that enough. Trains aren't clean, so these little details do matter in the end, but are very often overlooked. You can even take it one step further during the window taping process and cut the tape into the shape of wiper blade patterns. When you dull coat the engine, your windshield will have the dirt cleared away where the wipers should be moving, adding another small touch that nobody may ever see, but you know it's there, and that's all that matters, right? Remember, folks, there's no wrong way to weather. Well, maybe. But if you mess something up and aren't happy with it, you can always change it. Follow these steps in order and take your time. Use your imagination and get creative. There's no wrong way to weather, but there are various steps to get to the end result. So the order that you do those steps in and the attention to detail that you use will dictate how the model turns out in the end. The only way to learn is to get started. So go out there and give it a try. Even if you're new to the hobby, I'm 38 years old, and until last year, had never really weathered anything in my life. That's a cool transformation, by the way. I watched our friend Greg Goodall. Does that look familiar? Everybody, all right, yeah. Yep, I was about, what was I, 13 at the time in that? Yeah.
You look like you're posing for a magazine.
We were exhausted. We literally just came up from the river over there on the right.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a hill, let me tell you. So yeah, I watched our friend Greg Goodall weather all of my models since I was a kid. I never really tried it myself because he is so good at it that I never had to really do it. He liked doing it for me, so it was great. But I wanted to give it a try. So, about 2 years ago, I went out and I got the hang of it on a box car, just a random box car. I was like, you know what? I got this. So I spent the next 4 days, 24 hours, weathering my big boy. The biggest, most elegant engine that I have in my whole fleet, and I dove in full bore on it. And I haven't looked back since. So much so that I started a Facebook page called The Weathering Station, where I post pictures of my videos and artwork, as well as helpful bits of information as to how each piece came to be. Feel free to follow along if you want to. Also, make sure to check out all the models in this presentation and more on the tables in the back of the room there. We'll probably clear them down tonight, but they're back there. Now, thank you for your time, and I hope you've enjoyed my very first presentation on this subject, and my first presentation in front of a large group of people, probably since high school. So, 20 years.
All right.
I threw on a little video for a few minutes, and it's a very interesting video. It's a little bit of modeling, it's a little bit of old clips from the internet, and some stuff that I made in the middle. So.
From Paul's house.
Yeah, that was a mile from Paul's house. Yeah, and if you have questions, feel free to holler out. Like,
I have a question.
Yes.
Just kind of seeing the expanse and the growth of this over the past 12 to 18 months. I'm curious if you might be interested in possibly doing a clinic sometime at SACOM and pick a universal car like coal hoppers, for example, and sit down and maybe do a beginner's weathering session or something like that?
I would absolutely want to do that, and yeah, we should do that soon. We've got a whole bunch of USRA 50 tonners that we need to
Yeah,
get in service.
all kinds of 55 Ts.
Nick?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I'll freely admit I'm a diesel era guy, but
Okay.
with the coal on your tenders for your steamers, what was like the size coal they would put in there? Is it lump or egg? Or I've heard these names, but I have no idea what they would use on a steam engine. Was there a specific grade they tried to use, or just whatever went in there?
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I don't know. But what I do know is from the pictures that I look at, it looks pretty close.
Okay.
Now there are different, I know there's different things, like say they loaded at some random loadout in the middle of nowhere. You might get some big chunks of coal get burned down in there. But there was a uniformity to it. I also know that. Tyler, do you know anything about all that? I know you worked
I
the
think-
coal loadout at his layout.
I think the majority of it was egg.
Okay. Karen, then?
I would guess that it would be, egg or maybe lump and small.
Okay.
I can tell you in 1225 we burnt lump.
Mm.
And there's been times we've even gotten bigger than that. It doesn't necessarily matter because the Archimedes screw, you know, crushes it up. It pretty much just boils down to the size of the openings for the coal to fall into the screw.
Right,
I
okay.
mean, we've used coal on 1225, it's about as big around, or bigger than a softball.
And it just sits there and chips it away.
And the Archimedes screw just crushes it and it goes in kind of a mix of what I'd say is, stoker coal and powder.
Yeah. Well, did that answer your question a little
Yeah.
bit? Okay, cool. I learned something too, so that's neat.
Very good, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah, great job, thank you.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. It's early for the break or whatever, so it's about 5 more minutes long. Enjoy.
Bring the lights back up.